Hello, Dr. Anders from Ford Chiropractic and Ford Bike Fits. Today I'm going to show you how to set up your own saddle for optimal performance and comfort. Alright, so there are 4 elements when it comes to the correct saddle position. The first thing being the width of the saddle. We're not going to go through that today, but make sure you find the right width for your pelvis. So you can measure that. We can do it here in the clinic if you like. But the second element is the angle of the saddle. Right. So the way to set up your angle, you want to start off by setting the saddle in a neutral position. So I'm not sure you can see that, but currently that's at minus 2.6 degrees, minus 2.5 degrees. This saddle here is the Bontrager Aola saddle. This is neutral at minus 2 degrees. So currently this saddle is set up minus 0.5 degrees off neutral, okay? So you want to start off by putting it neutral. So you want to start and put it up at minus 2 degrees. Other saddles is neutral at 0 degrees. Some saddles are at minus 1 degree. So make sure you find out about that. I'm happy to help you with that if you have questions about that. So you will start off by putting this saddle at minus 2 degrees in this case, or at neutral, so 0 degrees. So this setup here is quite simple. So this is the Trek Madone bike, and it has a really good mechanism where it clamps the rails here with one bolt, and it clamps the rotation at the other point here. So there's 2 different elements. So every seat post is different. I find this to be really easy to work on. So yours might look very different than that. But if you have a Trek Madone, that makes it a bit easier. So minus 1.7. I do this every day, and I've been a bike mechanic for the last 20 years. It still takes me a couple of minutes to get this at neutral. So expect it to take a few tries to get it just right. And then you want to torque the bolts to the right torque setting. We're getting there. Minus 2. All right. So that's the saddle. So it's down a little bit, but the point of this video is to show you that you want to put it at neutral. Okay. So what you do now, once you've had it at neutral, that's how you start. You also get the saddle height, which is the distance from the center of the bottom bracket right there to the top of the saddle right there. So that's the height of the saddle. You want to set that up for your riding. If in doubt, put it a little bit lower than what you think, but you want to be comfortable and in the right position. That's something we go through during the bike fitting session. So the saddle angle, the saddle height, the saddle width, and then the last portion is the fore and aft of the saddle. How far forward, how far back it is. I would generally recommend you to put it in the middle of the rails. So every saddle has a guide. Put it in the middle to start with. Put the saddle at neutral and get your right height for your type of riding, as well as the right width. Okay. Once you've done that, the saddle is set up for first attempt. So you jump on the bike, you go for a ride, and you hold your hands on the handlebars, and then you feel what you're feeling on the saddle. So you might feel like there's quite a bit of pressure on the front of the saddle. If you have a lot of pressure on the front of the saddle, when you're up on the levers on the hoods, your saddle is too flat for you. If it gets worse when you go into the drops of the handlebars, the saddle is definitely too flat for you. So what you would do in that case, you would tilt the saddle down, start off by half a degree, so 0.5 degree, down, test ride it, go for another ride. you should aim for there to be no pressure at the front of the saddle when you're up on the levers on the hoods. But there might be a slight pressure when you're down on the drops. And that's because you're rotating your pelvis forward, and it does put a little bit of a pressure on the front. That's normal. But when you're up on the hoods, on the levers, there should be very little pressure, if no pressure at all, at the front of the saddle. So that's really important to get right. That will lead to numbness and discomfort if that's not quite right. So you want to tilt it down half a degree, that's really important, at the time until you find the right angle for you. But you don't want to go too far. So if you keep going down, 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 and then if you never find that point, if you go too far down, you're going to start putting a lot of pressure on your hands. It's going to be very uncomfortable. So that means that the saddle might not be right for you. So, or there are other elements that are playing in, like the saddle height or the fore and aft that plays with it. But now we're talking just about the saddle angle. So start off neutral, tilt it down half a degree at a time until you find that sweet spot. I would generally recommend you not to go further than -3 degrees off neutral. Once you start to go below -3 degrees, you start putting a lot of pressure on your hands and you start sliding forward on the saddle. At that point, you're probably looking at a different saddle or you need a bike fit, pretty much. So, but to summarize, put the saddle in the middle of the rails, put the saddle at neutral, and get the height that you think is right for you, and then do one thing at a time. Start off by doing the angle of the saddle, half a degree. Does that feel better? Great. Try again another half degree. Does that feel even better? Great. And make sure you don't feel like you're sliding forward on the saddle, or you feel like you're putting a lot of pressure on your hands. And that summarizes how I think you should set your saddle up for optimal comfort. That's the process I go through when I have people in for bike fit in the clinic. Saddle is so important to get right, so make sure you spend a lot of time getting this dialed in properly. I'm happy to help if you have any questions.